Son. This is your weekly challenge. Okay, Pugags, and welcome to this week's challenge video. This week I wanted to demonstrate to you boys and girls the importance of practice and how it can pay off to build skill and to reach your goals. Now, we talk about it a lot in the gymnasium that practice makes perfect, and that if you're trying a new activity and it seems super tough, you're not going to get better if you give up. The only way to get better is to practice, try your hardest, and use the proper strategies. And that doesn't just apply to gymnasium activities like hitting a birdie with the badminton racket, shooting a basketball, passing a soccer ball. Applies to everyday life and pretty much everything you do. Just like if you've ever started a new topic or unit in one of your math classes and you just couldn't wrap your head around it and you just thought it was too tough, but maybe a little ways down the road, you were able to do it, and it just took a little bit of practice and guidance from your teacher, and it didn't seem so bad in the end. So pretty much everything in life, you kind of get out of it what you put into it. So the harder you try, the more you want to accomplish it, and the more you practice, the better you're going to be. Even the best athletes in the world, like for instance, LeBron James, arguably the best basketball player in the world, and some would argue the best of all time. He didn't just wake up one day and was the best basketball player in the world. He practiced from a very young age as much as he could. He identified his weaknesses, seeked strategies for bettering his weaknesses in his game, and I guarantee, even though he's won a number of championships and stuff, every single day he wakes up and he just wants to get better, and he identifies where he can get better, and he just practices. Okay, so it's likely that the first 100 shots he took as a kid probably didn't go in the net, but he just kept going and kept going and kept going, and now he is where he is today. So that's a great example, and I think any professional athlete, they have the same story. None of them woke up being that naturally gifted. There's a lot that can be said for just practicing and trying your hardest and kind of putting as much into something as you can. So the way I kind of wanted to demonstrate this was last week I decided that I was going to learn how to juggle. I had never juggled before. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have any strategy or anything, but I just decided to take a video of my attempt to show you like where I started out, and then I spent the week practicing, and I'll show you after we watch this first video of last week where I've got to with just a week of practice and just kind of learning the proper strategy, and I just really want you guys to see what can be accomplished if you just try your hardest. All right, so here we're going to just rewind to last week, and I'll show you my first attempt. Okay, here we go. All right, today is June 11th. If you're watching this at least a week later than the current date. I've just finished my skipping rope challenge, and now I'm going to try my first attempt at the juggling challenge. Now, I have never juggled before. I have no idea what I'm doing. I haven't looked up any strategies or techniques. So I just want to show you how people can, like with a little bit of practice and a little bit of kind of research and trying different strategies and whatnot, how far you can come in just a week of taking the time to practice something. So hopefully, if you're watching this, the next clip will be me a week later doing a lot better, because I can't imagine this is going to go well. So here's my attempt. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to try to keep these in the air at the same time. It's really hard to keep these in the... Well, that's not so bad. I have no idea. Uh-oh. As you can see, I have no clue what's going on here. See, that kind of looks like I've got something going, but you want to, I imagine, keep all the balls in the air at the same time kind of thing. So I have no idea what the strategy is, but I'm going to look that up right now. I'm going to practice for the week, and then when you're watching this video, hopefully you can see that I've come a long way. We'll see though. Okay, so that was my first attempt last week. Again, with no knowledge of the proper way of juggling, having never done it before. And then the first thing I did after that was I went and researched the proper way of juggling, the best strategy, because we talk about this lots in the gymnasium as well. There's a right way of doing things, and then there's a lot of wrong ways of doing things. So the first thing you want to do is find out the right strategy for any activity, because if you practice with like the less efficient strategy, like if you're shooting a basketball improperly. And even though it might seem like it's working for you, if you keep practicing the wrong way, you're going to get into some bad habits. You're going to kind of your muscle memory is going to be a little bit improper. But if you start out with the right strategy, you're going to find that you kind of can reach your ceiling a lot quicker, and you can advance much faster than if you're kind of using a weaker strategy. Um, and if you're shooting a basketball or kicking a soccer ball the wrong way for a long period of time, it's really tough to get out of those bad habits. So, when learning a new skill, strongly recommend finding the most efficient, the best way of doing it, and then start your practicing. So, um, immediately after that video was taped last week, I researched, I found out what I was doing wrong, some strategies for succeeding, and then I spent the last week probably only 10 to 20 minutes a day working on those strategies, practicing, um, getting my muscle memory to where I wanted it to be and whatnot. And now I'll show you what I've done in just a week's time. Okay, so it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a lot better than last week. And then I can just keep practicing and practicing, and I can just keep getting better and better now that I have a nice base for it. So here is my attempt a week after with just 10 to 20 minutes of practice each day. So here we go. All right, so here's my attempt at juggling just 1 week later with just a little bit of practice each day. Getting better, huh? One more time for good measure here. So as you can see, it's not perfect, but I've come a long way in just a week. Now, before we end the video, I'll just show you some tips and tricks that I use to get better so that you can complete the challenge. All right? Okay, so here's some tips and tricks that I use to get better at juggling. So when I started out, the first thing I read is that you want to start with two balls in your dominant hand. So this is my dominant hand, this is my weaker hand. And the idea in my first video a week ago, I just, for whatever reason, I just kept trying to throw with my dominant hand. And it didn't seem to work because I couldn't keep more than one ball in the air kind of at a time. So I found out that you actually want to be alternating, which makes a lot of sense. So I'd be throwing one out of my dominant hand, then my weak hand, then my dominant hand, then my weak hand. And so when I started practicing that, I found that whenever I threw with my less dominant hand, the ball would either go too low or too high or kind of get away from me. And I realized that I needed to kind of work on my muscle memory first to make things easy. So I actually put a ball away and I just kind of practiced with each hand for like 5 minutes a day for a couple days. And I just kept trying to throw the ball through the same kind of angle, the same trajectory, so that it was consistent, because I found that as soon as one ball started to kind of fly away or was too low or too high, that's when kind of my attempt was over, because it was too hard to keep a steady rhythm. So what I did was start with two balls, and I just say my dominant hand first, just keep trying to throw it the same trajectory, not too high or not too low. I just kept doing that until I felt that the muscle memory was there. I was used to the weight of the balls. And then I would do the exact same thing with the other hand, and I would just keep going through it, just keep trying to get the ball into roughly the same area. Okay? And so I kept doing that until I was ready, and then I was good to start actually juggling. So again, what you want to do is you want to have your palms facing up, two balls in your dominant hand, and that's when you can start. So the idea is when one ball gets up to kind of its peak, and then it starts coming down, that's when you throw the next one. You want to have a steady rhythm. I also found that if you kind of started getting frustrated, or you kind of got a little bit anxious and stuff, if you just took time, took a deep breath and slowed down and kind of made sure you're at a steady pace instead of rushing, it was a lot more beneficial. So let's start with, again, two in my dominant hand, one in my weaker hand, and then just try to throw it through the same trajectory each time. And I found that that was very successful. One thing I found too is if I threw it too high or too low, like if you might think that throwing it too high is going to make it a lot easier because you have more time to kind of wait for the ball to come down. But it also, the higher the ball goes, the more force you put into it, the better chance it has of getting away from you, and then obviously your attempt is over. So 2 balls in your dominant hand, 1 ball in your weaker hand. Have them kind of right by your waist if you can, and then you're just alternating back and forth, trying to get it through that same angle, not too high, not too low. And it was still a little bit frustrating, but remember, don't give up. I just kept going and going, and then one day I just found it was way easier than I thought it could be within a week. And again, I still have room to grow, but that's part of it. You're not going to master anything in a week's time, but you can build yourself a nice base, and you can just keep growing from there. With that being said, that's pretty much the challenge for the week. Just you don't necessarily have to use tennis balls or anything. Just these I find fit nicely into my hand, and I was lucky enough to find 3 of them. They can be different style balls. Just make sure they're kind of around the same size. They don't even necessarily have to be balls. They're just obviously easier to control, but even just any household things that you don't mind falling on the ground about 100 times before you kind of have mastered it will work. So that's about it. Try the challenge. Just take a video of you practicing after a week, trying these strategies. Remember, Google's your friend. If this strategy isn't working for you, or you just need some kind of clarity on some things, just go Google how to juggle. Maybe ask an uncle or an auntie or your parents or maybe a cousin who maybe knows how to juggle. Just don't be afraid to ask for help, whether that be online or just someone you know, and that's how you're going to get better, right? Google's your friend. There's on YouTube you could probably find about 1,000 videos on how to juggle, just like any other skill. So any skill that you want to learn, I'm sure you could find countless videos on how to do it and do it the proper way. So that's pretty much it for the week. Get your videos in and win some prizes. All right. Well, that wraps up our weekly challenge. Until next week, get your videos in, stay active, and... Igagama!